Alright, fellow Vinland Saga enthusiasts, let's immerse ourselves in the world of Vikings, honor, and the quest for Vinland. It's time to recap the latest episode and unearth the hidden treasures that make this series an absolute gem. Let's jump right into the episode. As the episode commences, Canute approaches Thorfinn and inquires whether he possesses the ability to halt him, akin to how Askeladd did in the distant past. Subsequently, one of the soldiers beseeches Thorfinn to depart, lamenting the necessity of potentially taking his life. Einar interjects, reflecting upon the prevailing notion that the world operates on the principle of strength dictating righteousness, expressing his disdain towards the Vikings for perpetuating such a grim reality. Tension fills the air as Thorfinn's gaze sharpens in response to King Sweyn's dismissive words towards Canute, labeling him as foolish and not yet worthy of being a king. Sweyn challenges Canute's decision to reveal his true emotions to individuals he perceives as beneath him, asserting that understanding between them is impossible. With a cutting tone, Sweyn compares Thorfinn, Einar, and those alike to a flock of sheep, while Canute assumes the role of an aloof shepherd who tends to them, selectively culls them, and ultimately benefits from their sacrifices. The episode delves into Sweyn's contemplation on how mere sheep can possibly fathom the intentions and actions of a shepherd, asserting that the shepherd's control is ultimately for the sheep's own benefit. However, in a pivotal moment, Thorfinn defies Sweyn's influence and reaches out to Canute, seemingly breaking through the king's grasp. Sweyn, recognizing the threat Thorfinn poses, commands Canute to execute him immediately, emphasizing that it is the duty of a king. In response, Thorfinn asserts that if Canute plans to employ his power to impose his will, then Thorfinn will choose to flee instead. The soldiers and Einar appear perplexed by this declaration, mirroring Canute's own confusion. Canute acknowledges Thorfinn's statement, but questions whether that is truly the extent of Thorfinn's intentions. Thorfinn, in turn, poses a poignant question, asking what other alternatives exist apart from engaging in a deadly confrontation in their current setting. Thorfinn acknowledges that Canute's vision of paradise brings benefits to many at the expense of a few. He admits his uncertainty regarding whether it is inherently good or bad, realizing that he lacks the authority to pass judgment on Canute's ideals. Recognizing that escape is his sole recourse, Thorfinn instructs Einar to prepare for their departure, prompting Canute to commend Thorfinn as an extraordinary warrior. Canute interjects, suggesting that there exist alternative paths, and questions whether Thorfinn allowed himself to be battered simply to reprimand him. Thorfinn retorts that he has squandered his time, bidding farewell to Canute, while addressing him as His Majesty. Unexpectedly, Canute erupts into laughter, causing Thorfinn and Einar to pause in their tracks and cast a curious gaze back at him. Canute explained that many wish to bargain with him and ensnare him, but Thorfinn is unbelievable. Canute calls him an absolute fool for not having anything up his sleeve, reaffirming that completely unarmed and thoroughly beaten, Thorfinn's only act was begging Canute not to take Ketil's farm. Thorfinn challenges the amusement behind Canute's laughter, questioning its true comedic value. In response, Canute confesses that he has never encountered such ludicrous attempts at peaceful negotiations before. Canute then inquires whether Thorfinn intends to flee, to which Thorfinn affirms his decision. Canute reflects on the Vikings' capacity to give rise to an individual as remarkable as Thorfinn, referring to him as a beautiful man. Canute inquires about Thorfinn's intended destination to escape the ravages of war, but Thorfinn evades providing a direct answer. Canute counters by mentioning the expansion of his territory, implying that his influence might eventually extend to that very place. In response, Thorfinn asserts his determination to flee as far as possible, emphasizing that as long as he has somewhere to escape to, he will refrain from engaging in combat. Thorfinn expresses his determination to establish a tranquil haven beyond Canute's grasp, employing different approaches. He envisions this sanctuary as a refuge for those who cannot thrive in the world he intends to create, emphasizing that both he and Einar will find solace there. Canute acknowledges that Thorfinn intends to fill the void left by his own efforts. However, Canute questions Thorfinn's ability to accomplish such a feat, acknowledging that his own power surpasses Thorfinn's by far and that Thorfinn alone cannot address such significant challenges. He points out that if Canute continues to oppress people, there will come a point where no one can rescue him. Thorfinn insists that Canute must exert more effort and reduce the burden he places on Thorfinn. As the sun sets and darkness engulfs the scene, Canute chuckles and commends Thorfinn's eloquence, inquiring about the source of his rhetoric. Meanwhile, Thoril, prepared for battle, notices the apparent disappearance of Canute's forces, commenting on this unexpected development. Thorfinn declares that their conflict is not yet resolved, and it is revealed that Canute and his forces have indeed retreated. Wolf informs Canute that Floki was dissatisfied and failed to comprehend the reason behind their withdrawal from the farm. Canute inquires if Wolf shares the same dissatisfaction, but Wolf happily denies it, prompting Canute to announce the cancellation of their plans to seize other farms to avoid burdening Thorfinn further. Canute gazes up at the sky before turning his attention to the sea, expressing to Wolf that he had believed he was the only one fighting alongside him until today. However, he reveals that he has now gained new allies. The narrator provides further context, explaining that Canute later issued an order for the disbandment of the Danish army stationed in England, thereby relieving the financial strain on England. As a result, Canute's Danish forces were reduced to a mere 16 ships with men. Surprisingly, the anticipated English uprising never occurred, as the English nobility recognized the trust placed in them by Canute through the relinquishment of military forces. This marked a turning point in the relationship between the conqueror and the conquered. The story returns to the present, where Canute experiences a sense of contentment as he gazes at the sea, displaying a truly happy expression. Meanwhile, at Ketil's farm, Thorfinn awakens in the barn bedroom he shares with Einar, only to find himself alone. Using a cane for support, Thorfinn begins his journey towards a particular destination, eventually arriving at Arnheid's grave where Einar is present. As Einar pays tribute to his mother and sister by placing flowers on Arnheid's tombstone, memories of their tragic deaths resurface within him. Einar recollects Arnheid's question about the purpose of her continued existence, which frustrates him. Thorfinn places a comforting hand on his friend's shoulder, and Einar inquires about Thorfinn's well-being, to which Thorfinn affirms that he is okay. Einar advises Thorfinn against engaging in reckless actions, cautioning him not to do anything foolish. Einar then asks Thorfinn if their destination is the legendary land beyond the sea, Vinland. Thorfinn reflects on the moment when Arnheid took her final breath, regretting his inability to provide her with a satisfactory answer about the meaning of life in that moment. Thorfinn grapples with the weight of Arnheid's suffering and her desire for the peace of death. He ponders over what he should say to someone who has endured such pain and longs for release. Clenching his fist, Thorfinn expresses his aspiration for a world where he can urge people to embrace life, a world he can proudly describe to someone who sees death as their only salvation. He envisions this place as an alternative more enticing than death, a longing shared by himself and others in the world they inhabit. Thorfinn and Einar gaze up at the sky, witnessing a flock of birds soaring above the vast ocean, both displaying determined expressions. Thorfinn proclaims that he refuses to accept the notion that such a place does not exist, declaring his determination to create it himself. He implores Einar to join him on the journey to Vinland, referring to him as his brother, and promises that together they will establish a land they can proudly tell Arnheid about. Einar agrees wholeheartedly, and the two friends seal their commitment with a firm handshake, vowing to carry out their mission in honor of Arnheid. The camera pans out to the sea as the episode depicts the duo aboard Leif Erikson's boat, bidding farewell to Snake, Peter, Olmar, and Sverkel, who see them off from the shore. The episode then rewinds to just before their departure, with Snake questioning Thorfinn if he is truly at peace with this decision. Thorfinn reflects on his actions, considering them presumptuous. Snake reveals that he informed Ketil and others that Olmar convinced Canute to withdraw, for which Thorfinn expresses his gratitude. Peter assures Thorfinn that he will protect Arnheid's grave, while Olmar extends his hand to Thorfinn, thanking him and expressing his desire to become strong and compassionate like him. Thorfinn acknowledges Olmar's decision to cease fighting, describing it as remarkable and revealing that it took him 15 years to make the same choice. He expresses his admiration for Ketil's farm, considering it a remarkable place, and hopes for its restoration and preservation. Thorfinn then expresses his appreciation to Sverkel for his continuous assistance, to which Sverkel dismisses it as a mere transaction and insists that Thorfinn need not thank him. The scene transitions back to the present, where Thorfinn and Einar are bid farewell by the four companions. Olmar laments that they did not take at least a single silver mark with them, unveiling a chest full of treasures left on the shore. Snake steps forward and addresses Thorfinn and Einar by his true name, Rold, son of Grim. Thorfinn and Einar exchange smiles and shout out their gratitude to Rold and the others, urging them to take care of themselves. The scene transitions to Arnhild's grave as they set off on their journey. The focus then shifts to Kettle, visibly distraught, sitting on his porch, overcome with emotion. Meanwhile, Olmar is seen working in the fields alongside the woman with whom he once shared a connection. A message appears on the screen, displaying the words, "Carve it." The episode continues with shots of Fox, Badger, and another one of Snake's soldiers toiling in the fields, their hands blistered from the labor. Another message follows, urging them to carve it into your flesh. Carve it into the land. A shot of Leif Erikson sailing with a smile, gazing out at the expanse of water, accompanies the next message, which reads, "Carve it into the sea." Badger playfully questions Snake about when he plans to start working, to which Snake responds that he was simply taking a brief break. He assures them that he will demonstrate what real farm work entails. Sverkel chuckles and observes the scene with a smile from the sidelines. A message appears on the screen, stating, "Carve what you feel into me." The episode then shifts to Peter visiting Arnhild's grave, wearing a gentle smile. He reminisces about his own life, enduring hardships and believing that pain was an inherent aspect of the world. Peter expresses his astonishment at encountering men like Thorfinn and Einar, wondering if Arnhild shares his sentiment. He muses that the two are embarking on a journey towards a world they could not have previously fathomed, describing it as someplace that's not here. Vinland Saga Season 2 Episode 23 concludes with a shot of Einar and Thorfinn's boat sailing onward, accompanied by a final message that reads, "Carve that encounter into me." As the message fades into a black screen, the episode comes to a close,